back for another video. So I want to continue on the conversation of black land ownership as well as heirs property. So continue on, Queen Quet was having a Zoom meeting with the attorney, Willie Heyward from the heirs property law firm in Charleston, South Carolina. Part of their video, part of the Zoom meeting that I'm going to talk about here, I'm going to show you. They're having a conversation about how to protect heirs property, or how to protect property, how black people can protect their property, especially if it's heirs property. So I want to get into this video and have a conversation and get my reaction about it, my experience and knowledge on dealing with heirs property, and how if you have family that are heirs to property, you are heir to property, how will you protect it based on my experience, my knowledge. So let's get into the video.
Right. Believe me, the court is no place to resolve family land issues. It has to be done among the family. And then once it's packaged, come to court. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to say this. One of the things that we were taught growing up is you do not go to an unjust law looking for justice.
Absolutely.
Say that again. You do not go to an unjust law looking for justice.
Absolutely.
Now, black folk, usually in court, we feel like it's just us. We in it. All right? And all kind of different court. Criminal court, land court, whatever kind of court you can think of.
Right.
You think that. But how we get there? In this case, we often get there because some family member just wouldn't talk to the other family members.
Absolutely.
Some family member figures they should be the one in charge of something more than somebody else, or they're just selfish and they feel like, well, so what? I want money. So y'all don't have to want to sell, but if I got an interest, I'm going to sell mine. Well, it's not yours. It's we own. It's all of ours. And that's why we're saying we are encouraging you, like we've done in time and again in session after session, when we've done these heirs property workshops in person. Sit down, talk with the family. I encourage you, when Corona over, when Corona going by your business and things like that, you need to have your family reunion meeting, have an afternoon or an evening that is just about property. It's about your property, what you're going to do with it, who is going to be responsible for it, and what it is that y'all see as a vision for building wealth. Black family wealth, we have to build. This wealth gap between us and Anglo people is extreme. And we can close it by holding on to assets that many of us just became heirs of. And I know one of the tools in the kit that we talked a lot about what gets your assets out of your hands. But let's talk about what can keep the assets in our hands. One of the tools in the kits that I'm familiar with, Brother Heyward, is LLCs, family LLCs, limited liability corporations.
Yes.
What do you think about families using that so they can maintain their land ownership instead of ending up in court, fighting each other and losing the land? Can't they end up doing an LLC and then leasing the land so that from now to 99 years or whatever lease they put on it, they would make money no matter if it's a hunting lease or someone builds a strip mall on their property and have to pay them monthly rent, which is what a lease is, that family LLC would gain that income, and everybody who has shares would then benefit. They would get residual income, additional money from that, as well as the land tax would be paid. Isn't that a tool that could be used?
That's an excellent tool, and that's a tool that we've utilized in a number of cases. Thomas Barnwell down there in Newford is another case.
He's a wonderful example.
Yeah, the family can. Well, one thing you have to do with an LLC is you have to go through the quiet title process so that you know what everybody's interest is, and then those interests are then conveyed by deed into the LLC, which is a democratic, I think, vehicle which everybody has some input in, and it's run like a company because it is a company, right. and is legally recognized, and I think more importantly, that LLC is still in existence over multiple generations, and the family is still in control of that asset over multiple generations. As people die, they don't lose control of it.
Right.
I've run into one problem, a couple of problems here, where families have, one in particular has spent over $68,000 clearing title because they had to pay off heirs, and they had to take a mortgage to do so, and they finally paid the mortgage off and got the LLC, and I think they divided it into 10 or 12 lots and did a road. Once that happened, the county decided that they were going to develop an outlying parcel on the water, and one of the road that ran along this development that they did, this partition that they did, dividing the property, 40 feet, and they're going to pave it. And they did a referendum for it, just so that they could benefit somebody on the water, because they can't get the heavy equipment. It's just a low country dirt road, but they couldn't get the heavy equipment in there to develop this waterfront parcel.
This waterfront parcel.
Yeah,
right.
And so this parcel ended up on a referendum a couple of years ago, and I've been fighting that ever since. But at the LLC, you can fight better with your fist than you can with one finger. And so you have an LLC with multiple owners, multiple resources. That LLC can go to the bank, borrow money, pay the taxes, defend itself against outliers, and pass that interest along. And it's democratic because you elect officers, and you can have an input into how that LLC is run. So it's a family. One more family. What I want to say, entity is a family trust.
Okay.
The difference being an LLC. You can basically run itself with the folks who you have elected to do so, the president and the secretary and so on and so forth. So forth. Whereby the trust, you need a third party to run it. It's run according to what's in the trust, but you need a third party and not the folks who are involved. The third folks who are involved with just beneficiaries of that trust. So that's basically the major difference. But both of those
So who would that third party be? It has to be a non-related person. Is that the case with the trust, with the land trust?
They usually recommend a non-related person because it's hard to be a beneficiary and the trustee, because you're gonna benefit yourself more than other people.
Than other people, right?
Yeah, so
right.
you like a lawyer or a bank or
I was gonna say
or some other entity to be responsible for.
Be responsible. Yeah. So I was going to ask you that. You went right there. And I was going to say, other than the lawyer, don't they do this with banks, where you can get someone to be that trustee
That is
on
correct.
behalf of a land trust. And
That
so people have formed both family land trusts and open land trust and all kinds of land trusts that we see, and there's a mixture of them throughout the Gullah Geechee Nation, but all with the same vision of retaining the ownership of the land, and often retaining even some of our cultural heritage traditions, such as farming and agriculture and forestry, and keeping open fishing areas so that you can still go out to that land. And now let's talk about something else that I know a lot of our people in the room today, and y'all can pop questions in the chat if you like. I know that a lot of them are probably also interested in how do they protect their burial areas? Because we know, in that example you just said, it gave me a flashback. When you talked about them wanting to develop, as I call it, destruction, meant to destroy these waterfront areas. A lot of our sacred burial areas are on the water. And we have seen time and again, I'm sure you've been in cases, I've been in cases, trying to prevent destruction areas from building clubhouses over Gullah Geechee graves. Then it started being individuals trying to pull the same stunt. They want to put something else on the property, and they want to move people headstones under the cover of night and all kinds of stuff. And then there's this willingly and knowingly clause that people try to act like they ain't see the headstone. They ain't had know it was a grave. So tell folks, how can the family also, like I'm telling them, they having a family reunion meeting. They need to talk about the tools to help protect the property. They need to talk about who are the people who are trusted to be the trustees, or do you want to do the LLC or you want to do the land trust? What we're going to do, and then who will be in charge of that? Who are going to be the officers? Who are going to be the trustees? We're dealing with a bank. We're dealing with the lawyers. We're dealing with all this. But what about the burial area? What can people do in the case of these cemeteries if they feel that there might be a threat to those? What might be something that would be beneficial that they could do to be proactive and not have to be reactionary when these folks come along trying to get that piece of land?
I think the first thing I would recommend is to document. Document by taking pictures, having some physical record of where your ancestors are buried, and then having some sort of physical barrier which separates where they're buried from other land that the family may have in their possession or other people may have in their possession. You have to document because, as you said, headstones have a way of disappearing overnight. So you have to document where they are, where they're buried, even to go to the extent, I believe, in the one that we were, where they had the ultrasound or whatever.
Yes.
But you have to document where they're buried and have some sort of physical barrier. Have a surveyor come out and put a physical barrier around that area so that no one can mistakenly interfere, trespass, or intentionally, mistakenly go on it or intentionally trespass on where your ancestors are buried. You also indicated that it is near water, and traditionally it has been African American burial grounds buried by some course of water. And in South Carolina, as you know, that's some of the most expensive property in the entire state. So that is definitely under threat. That burial ground itself can be put in a separate LLC and be run separately from the property that's productive or the property that they live on. And you can have a separate group of people just to manage that cemetery, to restrict who has access and so on and so forth. And it can be in a nonprofit where you can raise monies to maintain that cemetery in perpetuity for that family. So there are a number of tools in place to preserve cultural, and this is extremely important because once it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
To preserve our ancestors' burial grounds, but we have to have folks, and I say this over again, we have to have folks in place who value the culture.
Absolutely.
Who value the culture. And if they don't value the culture, then protecting a cemetery or protecting ancestral land or perpetuating an idea that we are as Gullah people one family, once that's gone, then the rest will follow.
Everything else goes. Exactly. Yeah. And it's critical. Brother Greg is here from Edisto. I'm glad he's here. He has a wonderful book about our history and legacy on Edisto, or as we say, Disto, and some people say Edisto, here in South Kakalaki. And so I'm glad he's here today, even though he's down in the Florida region of the Gullah Geechee Nation, because one of the things that he's asking about is the fact, or mentioning, is the fact that many of our ancestral burial areas, and let me make this clear to y'all, we have cemeteries and we have graveyards. And these are all burial grounds, and they're all sacred ground. But there is a distinction between cemeteries and graveyards. So just for the point of argument here, the burial areas that are within gated areas, they are on some of these plantations. They give tours. They are somehow now on property that somebody else has the ownership of because your family might have lost it at a tax sale. My routine has been to negotiate those situations. I have part of my family that has a burial area on what is now a gated island. We made those people aware You all might have come here now as a property owners organization, but we have a human right to continuing our traditions here in the Gullah Geechee Nation. So as the indigenous people of this region, we will not be blocked off from access to that burial area. It only took one letter, one meeting. I know y'all said the queen is you, right? I mean, I got it. It might have been me, but sometimes that's what you need. If the person's voice is going to be the voice somebody going to hear, that's the person you want. So again, when we're talking about all these tools in the toolkit, that's one of them. You have to be willing and able to negotiate. Do not have this attitude that you can't negotiate with your family, you can't talk to them, and that you can't negotiate and talk to these people who have moved here either. You have to be willing and able to do that. And so also document everything. Document in writing, document it with photographs, get scanners now, because climate change and hurricanes are real in the Gullah Geechee Nation. We are still in hurricane season right now. There's work being done while I'm here in the air at the Gullah Geechee Alkebulan Archive to digitize things, put those things in the cloud, and have them as an external drive backup. That way, when you leave, you should have copies of deeds, birth records, marriage licenses, and where these ancestors are buried. We need to know where the bodies are buried at. Otherwise, you can spend exorbitant amounts of time and money in court trying to fight somebody else because they are trying to adversely possess your burial area. We hadn't even gotten around to talking about counties and states using eminent domain to take property from people, and then families needing to make sure that they get fair market value. And in most Gullah Geechee cases, that has not happened. They've gotten zero because there was no clear title, there were heirs, and nobody wanted to spend that money to figure out who those heirs are. If you are the heir, you know who your family is, you know your cousins in them. So let's stop all the fighting, the arguing. That only benefits people outside the Black community. It only benefits people outside the Gullah Geechee family. It does not help us. Now, let's go again. We don't go to unjust law looking for justice. If it's going to be about just us, let it be just us sitting at the table together underneath the oak tree together and things like that. The crack we teeth of what we want to do with this your land so that we build multi-generational wealth going into the future.
So that's the end of the video there. A lot was being said in there, so I'm trying to hit the different points they talked about. First was the family agreement. They made a point to say that court is no place for family disagreements in regards to heir's property or property per se. And then Queen Quet brought up that don't go to court using unjust laws to seek justice, especially when it's just us. So to that point, I do agree, but with their mindset and the statements that was said. However, the question should be asked again. I think this is on a case by case basis, right? If it's family dealing with family, that's one thing. But when you got family or going against a county or a city or eminent domain or real estate developer or whatever case may be, at some point you got to organize and fight back. He said it. Willie, Mr. Willie Heyward said it that a fist is much stronger than a pointing finger, right? So if you organize and you rally up together and you can fight back and you have an LLC, a land trust, or whatever the case may be, there's more power, there's more strength. Strength is in numbers versus just one person trying to fight back, such as in my case, or me and my mother's case. But anyway, so I agree to a certain extent of having a family agreement. But then again, on the other side, what do you do when family don't agree? And there is issues amongst the family. And the family have, I say family, but other individuals who may or might not be family, who might be heirs to this property, like talking about community-wise, in the community, right? Or engage in wrongdoings, or try to sell the land, or engage in some kind of activity, decision management, whatever it can be, that goes against the norm, goes against what everybody wants. She mentioned it. She said that this is our land. We all have a say in it, but if one person or a group of people, right, such as say a board, right, they organize, they have a board, and they're just like, hey, the board's gonna do what they want to do. We're gonna decide to cut timber. We're gonna put trailers on property. We're gonna lease this property out for hunting, and no regards for what other people else think and feel about how this property should be managed and utilized, especially when it comes to cutting timber. And the money generated from cutting timber is not equally distributed to everybody else, or it's just in a bank account and nobody has access to the information, know what's going on. But they all own the property. Everybody owns a property. No matter if it's 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 200 people, whatever. And they're not being informed as to what's going on, but only 5 people know. Or a few people know what's going on, but everybody else doesn't know. They're kept in the dark. So again, at what point do you sit down with your family and have this conversation to come to agreement? If there's no opportunity, people that are supposed to be in charge and managing the property or whatever are not sharing information, are not providing opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with everybody. And there's disagreements to where laws are being broken, rights are being violated to this property. Such in case of me and my family. Now granted, we didn't start this fight. The fight was pushed upon us. The issues were pushed upon us because of the allegations of wrongdoings. Right, wrong, and different. And there was plenty of opportunity for people to sit down and have a conversation. They tried. You watch other videos, me on the property, walking around the property. I talked about it. There were meetings called, and not everybody came to those meetings. Information was not shared with everybody. Everybody was not given an opportunity to sit down and hear what's being said and what's going on. And even this case now, as me as a party in this case, in the legal fight, there was deliberate action to not to disclose information to me and my mother and to other of my family. We're not in the know. Even though I was on the board, and in some cases I still say I'm on the board as an officer, I was not made aware of all the conversations that were being had off the record, on the record, whatever the case may be. I was not included in the conversation. So how is that right? Right? Talking about a democratic process, a democratic entity, organizing, having that family agreement, family understanding was not there, and everybody was involved. Again, right, wrong, and different. So at what point do you not go to court? What point do you go to the court asking for some kind of resolution? Especially, we mentioned it, talking about, hey, if you have an LLC, you need to acquire the title so that way you know what percent of ownership you have of the LLC. In my case, that I've been involved in, I inform my family, hey, have a non-profit organization, file an articles of corporation, have a board, have the bylaws. All this stuff was presented to the parties involved from different lawyers and judges. Again, they knew before I knew this. They were involved in it. They sat down with lawyers and met with the Center for Heir's Property and were told, hey, here's how we'll handle it. Here's our recommendation on how to handle it. And again, but nobody wanted to listen. Everybody had their own agendas, things they wanted to see get done, and they, hey, we're not going to invite these people, we're not going to tell them this, we're not going to share where the case may be. And when I came on board, I made sure that, hey, we're going to have bylaws, we're going to register this organization, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And as soon as the board got in place, as soon as there was elections and people took office positions, they started doing what they want to do. They became exclusive instead of inclusive. Held their own little meetings, did keep records. You heard them. Come on, document. Have it in writing. Have photographs, videos, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage license, whatever, photos of the burial grounds, the gravestones, headstones, all that. I mean, all comes in play. Organize, be organized, have structure, do things properly, document, and they didn't document. They haven't documented. So again, at what point do you sit down and have an agreement? Again, I understand their mindset, I understand their statements, why they said it, and I agree to it to some extent, but at some point, there has to be a way to finally resolve all the issues. And if people don't understand, even their family, you have to seek it through legal means. Even though the lawyers and judges and everybody outside the family are going to benefit, profit from this legal action, then so be that. So be it. It's better to go through that process to preserve and take the property, and then have the county, city, state, whoever, come through and take the property by eminent domain, or whatever the case may be. So again, talked about the different entities you could have: land trust, LLC. I recommend a nonprofit organization, until things can get organized to where maybe have an LLC and the profits are being shared with everybody. We also talked about protected burial areas, so the grave sites or the cemetery. Again, you see my other video where I'm on a property and I'm using the purple spray paint to mark the trees, and I'm got the caution tape going around the trees because I'm trying to protect the burial area, the cemetery, if you will. Just to create that barrier. It goes on the fence, a physical barrier. There's a barrier I'm identifying that, hey, this is a grave site. This area should be protected, right? In the event that the timber is cut, because again, the board is entering into agreements and doing things and not let everybody know, right? They're trying to cut the timber, but not everybody is being aware of it. So we got to do what's right to preserve and protect the property, especially the burial site of our ancestors, or the ancestors, people that were original owners of property, even slaves, or the Native Americans that were living on our property centuries ago, that is protected, that we identify that this is a burial area, so that the headstones do not get damaged. And, another topic that they talked about, really, tools and toolkit, to really how to protect the property, right? I mean, especially when it comes to heirs property and black folks, is document. Even the same way, I think I already mentioned it before, but as a re-attack, document photographs, video evidence, right? Document, archive, birth certificates, marriage licenses, obituaries, scan it. If you said put it in the cloud, put it on a hard drive, have a paper copy. Anything you gotta do to show evidence, to show proof, right? Because there's individuals, organizations, counties, whoever that see nothing wrong with acquiring land. You see my other video where I talked about the value of land, and also the documentary that was done by Vice News on the way blacks are, the laws are being used to basically take land from blacks that are heirs to property, right? Legalized theft. So you got to protect it. There's people that are preying upon heir property owners, people that own heir property, are part owners of property, and they will use whatever means by way of the laws to do so. So then another point is, she said, not to use the laws, unjust laws, to seek injustice. Well, they're going to use unjust laws, right? The same unjust laws to take land. So how do you protect it if you're not supposed to use unjust laws? And what about the lady, Miss Wendy, I think her name was Wendy Reed, who lost her property, the property that she was living on, that was purchased by, I think, her great grandmother, or her father's mother, or one of the ancestors, in 1957, and she failed to pay $112 in property taxes, and she lost the property. It was sold at a tax sale, and the county didn't want to work with her, allow her to purchase the property, because there was no proof of who she was. That what gives her a right to purchase the property, because her name wasn't on the tax bill, her name wasn't on the title. She didn't have a clear title. And they told her that, hey, you need to probate it. What's that? Well, you need clear title. Hey, go work with the Center for Heir's Property. They can help you. But it was too late for that. It was too late. So she lost the property at a tax sale. In 2014, she hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit against the county as well as the gentleman that purchased the property. Unjust laws to take property, but she had to fight the unjust laws, the injustice, to try to seek justice, but she lost because the courts ruled in favor of the county. And when she appealed it, she lost again. So at what point do we use the laws, the unjust laws, to fight back? By organizing, by understanding the rules and laws that are on the books that can take property are the same rules and laws on the books that can protect property, as well as documenting everything. Right? Again, there's individuals that are trying to get this property who do not have the birthright to said property, to heir property. They're trying to acquire this land by way of use, right? By claiming eminent domain, or whatever the case may be, buying up a share from an heir, from a family member who says, you know what, I just want my cut. I'm done. I'm walk away. This is just a hot mess. I don't want to be part of this no more. Whatever the case may be. Even the timber companies are going to find ways to get money, profit from the heir property, profit from the disagreements, the lack of organization, the lack of. They're going to find ways to do it. So, again, it's best that everybody sit down at the table and come to some agreement, or, fight out in court. And, Willie Heyward represented members of my family in 2012. From 2012 to 2015, he was part of the lawsuit. He was their attorney, because they were the defendants in the case. They were being sued for the transgressions over the heir property. And again, there's alleged to be individuals that sued them that didn't have the birthright to be heirs to property, but yet they claim to have an vested interest in property by way of some of the original owners, but provided no proof. Didn't have the documentation to prove it. Yet, so how can they sue members of my family or other individuals, but they themselves did not provide proof as to they have the right to sue somebody over heir property? I mean, that's probably for another debate, for another video, but if you watch my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. So I've been talking long enough. I think I'm going to wrap it up. But I just want to have this conversation, give my thoughts on the matter as far as black land ownership and heirs property, and how black land owners and those that are part of heir property can preserve and protect their property. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Peace.